When you think of horror games, specifically survival horror, what comes to your mind? I'm guessing the obvious come first, things like Resident Evil.
Whoa! Whoa!
Who the heck is this?
Leon!
Wait, what happened to him?
I think he got old!
No!
Silent Hill, maybe Outlast, or Alan Wake. Heck, even Alien Isolation, standing alone as a one-off game that was a masterpiece through and through. Among those games stands a trilogy that released all the way back in 2008. I'm talking about the Dead Space trilogy. Merry Christmas, everybody! It's officially the month of jolly and whatever else Americans say to describe Christmas. I even changed how my room looked just for the occasion. Do you like my Christmas tree and my Christmas decoration? No? Well, so yeah, another video about trilogies. I didn't really want to do two videos of this series back to back, but I wanted to play Dead Space, and the games are short, so the video will take less time to be made, as a way to basically make up for taking too long and make it that Crisis video. So yeah, episode 4, let's get right into it. Originally pitched in 2006 by Glenn Schofield, this survival horror game was clearly inspired by others from the same genre, specifically Silent Hill and Resident Evil 4. Bit of a weird one if you ask me, but that's not the point. After pitching the idea, EA gave them 3 months to work on a prototype, which they created using the original Xbox. After earning approval from the higher-ups, they created 11 levels in 10 months, and the game used the same engine that they used for The Godfather. Did you know The Godfather had a video game? Cause I didn't. It actually has 2. By 2008, they had a full game developed, and they released it not expecting the huge sensation they had just created. Many people consider this game not only one of the best horror games of all time, but one of the best games ever made. I wouldn't go that far, but the game is insanely good, and it has a lot of stuff that you wouldn't even realize until you stop to look. It's 2508. Earth has undergone an extinction-level event caused by overuse of resources, so obviously humanity thought, time to expand to the stars. And that's when the CEC comes into the equation. The Concordance Extraction Corporation creates a ship that would be the savior of humanity, the USG Ishimura. The Ishimura was designed with a new idea in mind, planet cracking. As the name suggests, they, crack the planet open for resources and take it back to Earth. But on one of those cracks, something went wrong. During the process of mining the planet Aegis 7, the Ishimura sends a distress signal to the CEC, and they send the USG Kellion to investigate, and that's when the game starts. We are Isaac Clarke, this is Zach Hammond, and this is Kendra Daniels. Oh yeah, I forgot to mention I'm playing the original. Anyway, as we are about to board the ship, things go wrong and we are forced to crash into it. So, before we even begin playing, let's talk about this game's PC port. This game is quite famous in the world of PC. Infamous actually would be the better word. Now, you might not be able to tell, but this game's mouse control is awful. Like, genuinely terrible. The reason why is because if you have turned on Virtual Sync, the mouse has massive delay. I'm talking like half a second. And you might be saying, well, deactivate it then. And while that is an option, here's a problem. This game basically requires you to have VSync on, whether it be in-game or forcing it with something like the Nvidia control panel. The reason why is because this game has multiple cutscenes and events tied to the FPS of the game. So if you turn off VSync, some sequences break. And I will show you one in a second. So before we even think about playing, we must turn off VSync, close the game, go to the Nvidia control panel and force VSync and triple buffering on. And even then, once you enter the game, it still has delay. It's minimal, but still noticeable. Once all of that is settled, we begin entering the Ishimura, and clearly this spaceship has been abandoned. Either that, or they just poofed out of existence. As we check the ship's damage log, the room enters quarantine, and some humanoid-looking creatures attack 2 of our crew members, forcing us to run away while Kendra and Hammond run the opposite way. We manage to avoid the enemies with an elevator, and we get to this location where we get our main gun, let's say, our plasma cutter. You see this door? Now normally this is what's supposed to happen. See? Pretty normal. Now if you have VSync turned off, this sequence doesn't happen. straight up it doesn't happen, and this door becomes an invisible wall. I remember I played this game a couple of years back before the remake was announced, and the reason I stopped is because I didn't want to deal with this shitty port again. Anyway, we reunite, quote unquote, with the other two through a window where we must get the tram going. Now that we're in a more relaxing position, let's talk about something not many people mention. What do you see in this gameplay? Nothing, right? You don't see no HUD telling you your health, telling you your ammo, no minimap, no compass, no nothing. And this is probably the best thing about these games. And it's the integration of your classic HUD into a much more visually rewarding experience. Heck, the way to know which way to go is by clicking B and it shows you on the floor the way to go. On your spine, I guess that is, you have these blue lights. These indicate how much health you have. And on the right side you have a circle which tells you how much juice you have to slow down time, which is one of the powers in the game. This game excels visually in that aspect. Everything interactable is very obvious to the eyes, and you only have to look at your character to tell how much life you have, which is very sick. Anyway, back to the story. Hammond tells us two things: that we're near an asteroid belt, and because the ship systems are falling, we have to repair our ship to get out of there. He also promises to help us find our girlfriend Nicole Brennan, as seen at the start of the game in our video that got sent to us, as that is the only reason we are there. Once the tram station is repaired, we go back to our ship. But just as we're about to repair it, the aliens attack it and it basically explodes. From here on out, there are multiple problems to fix with the ship, whether it be the air, as it is getting poisoned by these creatures, whether it be the communications array, and many other things. Throughout the game, you can find audio logs and video logs of what happened to the ship. To give you the rundown, the captain of the ship, Benjamin Matthias, was an agent of the Church of Unitology, a cult, to the surprise of nobody, tasked with retrieving one of his religion's most priceless possessions, the Red Marker, from Aegis 7, a planet that was quarantined centuries ago by unknown reasons. As you can guess, the Ishimura didn't care about the quarantine and scanned the planet, deeming it extremely rich in resources. While establishing a colony to help extraction, the CEC employees discovered the Red Marker, so the captain and others of the church basically won over the upper echelon of the ship's crew. After the marker was discovered, most of the people on the planet began to suffer massive hysteria attacks and hallucinations. Once brought to the ship, the people on the ship began suffering the same conditions. All of this couldn't be contained, and people began killing each other and themselves. At the same time, an unknown mass was starting to be created in the ship's docks. Still, everything was kept mostly under control, until the planet cracking began. Unknown entities called necromorphs began attacking the colonists and infecting them and turning them into other necromorphs. These are the main enemies in the game. The game features a pretty detailed gameplay in that sense. These things are better off killed by ripping their limbs and not just standard shoot them in the head kind of deal. Once this information reached the ship, Captain Matthias got contact with the colony, but didn't stop the cracking and didn't send a distress signal. I wonder why. Because his objective was mostly to get back the Red Marker to his church. Now you might be asking, how did the infection spread to the Ishimura? Well, a survivor from the colony called Colin Barrow disobeyed a no-fly order and crashed on the Ishimura with his dead wife and one of the necromorphs, and all hell went loose. Shortly after that, all of the emergency shuttles of the Ishimura were launched. All empty. At the same time, the communications array was destroyed by someone or by the creatures, but one of the officers managed to send a distress beacon which reached the CEC to send the Kellion. At this point in time, we are still separated from the other two, and they actually got separated from each other as Kendra was forced to run away. Hammond says he doesn't know anything about the marker, which prompts Kendra to think he is lying. Also, we'll reunite with Nicole, though we can't touch each other and she is acting strange. At one point, we reunite with Hammond, and as we get more objectives, he launches an escape pod with a necromorph inside, as it hadn't died yet. Why would you do that, dude? After repairing every critical system, we are able to send a distress beacon which gets picked up by the USM Valor, but they picked up a pod. You see where this is going. On an attempt to stop them from opening the pod, we repair the communications array to no avail, and the ship crashes into the Ishimura. Hammond then realizes that the Valor was packing too much heat to just be piloting in the system, and through logs and videos we can find that they actually meant to destroy the Ishimura, as they knew of the trespass and the Red Marker. To escape, we need the Valor's singularity core, but Hammond is killed by a brute in the process of getting it. At this point, the surviving Dr. Terrence Kyne communicates with us, telling us that the way to calm everything down is by returning the red marker to AG7. However, Daniels points out something, and that is that Kyne is in a delusional state, as he clearly speaks with his wife Amelia, who has been deceased for a while. After helping Kyne load the marker into a ship, he is killed by, drumrolls, Kendra Daniels. This plot twist actually took me by surprise. Also, I still find weird this death, like he dies by getting shot, but the shot looks like it came either straight in front of him or from behind, and Kendra is obviously not there. Kendra reveals that she is a government agent tasked with retrieving the red marker with the help of the USM Valor. The red marker is a reverse engineered copy of the black marker. The black marker is a totem found on the Chicxulub crater on Earth in the year 2214, and said copy was placed on AG7 to study the effects it had on people hundreds of years prior to the start of the game. The scientists discovered that the symbols on the red marker are DNA instructions for the necromorph infection. This obviously began infecting the scientists, and the planet was put on quarantine for the next 3 centuries. After this monologue, Kendra flees with the ship, but Nicole appears once again, repeating the phrase, "Make us whole once again," like Kyne did hours prior. So something is amiss here. Anyway, with Nicole's help, you can't see it but I'm making quotation marks, we manage to bring back the ship, forcing Kendra to leave via an escape pod. We then take the shuttle and go to the planet, where we take the marker back to its final place, prompting Nicole to say that we are whole again. I think it's quite obvious that this Nicole is fake, and the monoliths have taken control over us, or at least it has infected our mind. Anyway, after returning it, an enormous beam fires upward from the marker, destroying the gravity tethers that hold a large portion of the planet hanging in space. And obviously, this is about to destroy the planet. Kendra then appears again as we are fleeing the planet and takes it away as we hear the hive mind cry in anger from below. Kendra then makes us watch the video from the start again, this time in its entirety. Turns out that Nicole killed herself long before we arrive at the Ishimura, and it was the red marker all along. As Kendra attempts to escape, she gets killed by the hive mind. You get what you deserve, I guess. And we get the final boss fight. This boss fight is pretty cool, it's only held back by the awful controls on PC. Anyway, we manage to defeat it, don't ask me how, it's science fiction, and we board the shuttle. We take off our helmet and watch the video once again, just before stopping, and then this happens. So yeah, fantastic game. A little thing I wanted to mention is that if you take each chapter's name and spell it with the first letter of each, you get the sentence "Nicole is dead." Cool little Easter egg. There were a bunch of things I didn't mention, like this one doctor whose only purpose is to spit clues at us for what is going on, as he is obsessed with the marker. You know how it goes with these fanatics. He also created a necromorph that we fight that's immortal. I didn't mention it because the video would then be 2 hours long. The game surprisingly was a massive commercial flop. By February 2009, 4 months later after its release, it barely reached 1 million copies sold. And the only reason it reached that number is because of positive reviews, like the game sold only 193,000 units by late November. So I'm still surprised they decided to make a sequel. And not only that, but make a sequel without its creator. And that's the end. Onwards to Dead Space 2. Wait, what is this?
My name is Alyssa Vincent. I may be the sole survivor.
So to the surprise of absolutely nobody, as it is common with games of this time frame, this game had a movie prequel and it has a bunch of comics. Let's talk about the movie, shall we? Because I didn't know it existed until making the script for this video. So the movie was released in October of 2008, the same year the game was released, and it was developed by Film Roman, who made things like The Simpsons and Family Guy and King of the Hill. Like, this is a big company. EA put a lot of money into this, though the company did go defunct in 2018. So yeah, it's an animated movie. The art style is very similar to the one of Avengers Earth's Mightiest Heroes, which was also developed by Film Roman, though funnily enough, technically it's the other way around because this film came before that TV show. It's a decently short film, it's only 1 hour and 12 minutes, and the movie is not bad. Problem is, there's like 30 characters in the movie, so explaining the plot would be very annoying, so I'm just gonna give you the rundown. Basically, the movie begins with Alyssa Vincent sending the distress call that would get the USG Kellion to the Ishimura at the start of Dead Space 1. The movie then cuts to weeks earlier, where a team of 3 people discover a marker on the planet. As you already know, the marker infects the colony and the ship, but nothing would have happened if Colin Barrow, one of the 3 men at the start, didn't go back to rescue his wife, who we also see at the start, and takes her corpse with him, not realizing the alien creature that attached to the body. So, he crashes the shuttle in the Ishimura and all goes to hell. Before that, in the Ishimura, Vincent is dealing with the hysteria and killings due to the marker's influence on the people's mind. Captain Matthias and Kain appear on the movie. Explaining the movie is a bit redundant because your intuition can probably tell you how everything went down from all of that, and it's a neat little tie-in to the beginning of the original game. Also, this movie ties into another game called Extraction, that is one of those stationary shooters where you only control the aiming. The movie is fine, it's pretty gory, and the animation is decent most of the time, but you won't really miss anything if you don't watch it, it's just extra lore. Speaking of lore, there are also comics. I'm not even gonna talk about them, don't worry. I had read that the problems with Dead Space 1 were fixed, that EA learned from the shitty port of Dead Space, but no, not at all. I would argue this one's worse, or at least it was in my case. It's kind of insane. So before I even start the game, it doesn't want to open. Like, I open it and it minimizes. I don't have footage of it, but imagine an app minimizing constantly. And by constantly, I mean it. So I thought, is it because I have a second monitor? So I disable it, and no, it wasn't. So then I think about OBS. So I close it. Nope, didn't work either. So I attempt to reinstall it, which, did you guys know that you cannot uninstall this game from the EA app? That fucking application is so bad that it's not even funny. Like, when you click uninstall, it takes you to the fucking Windows uninstallation function. How do you even fuck that up? Anyway, the solution to this problem was to spam the left click button when opening the game. That would force it open on like 700p because it's an old game. I would then have to go to the options, change the resolution to 1080p, which would then minimize and force it again. So I would have to spam again and accept the changes before they reverted in 10 seconds. So that took like an hour to figure out, but that's not all. Remember VSync in Dead Space 1? Well, in this game, this is not VSync. This is just an FPS cap, like straight up an FPS cap, and it caps it at 30. I wish I was joking. So again, same thing, just turn it off, right? Well, no. Turning it off unlocks the FPS, which sequence breaks the game. Same exact problem that Dead Space 1 had. So again, I have to go to the NVIDIA control panel and force VSync. Surely that's all, right? Well, no. You must then install a patch for the mouse control, otherwise your controls are gonna be horrendously bad. So yeah, it took me like an hour to even start the game, and this time I am writing the script separately. So as of when I'm writing this part, I'm genuinely pissed off because of how bad these 2 ports have been. I'm just hoping that Dead Space 3's port is actually decent. But anyway, let's get into the game. Did you guys know the game's development ran at the same time as Dante's Inferno? Yeah, kind of insane that we got these 2 great games while being developed at the same time. You could learn a thing or two, Activision. Now, while most people have stayed, 2 people left, including Glenn Schofield and Michael Condrey. Yes, the Michael Condrey from Sledgehammer. They actually created it after leaving Visceral Games. And just to show you that life is a full fucking circle, the animator for the character in this game was one Veronica Garcia, who worked on Final Fantasy The fucking Spirits Within, and I wish I was fucking joking. This is amazing. So the game begins in a station on one of the moons of Saturn, where we are clearly in a psych ward. We have been in this location for an undisclosed amount of time, but get rescued by this guy and his sister when a necromorph outbreak occurs. So this guy is called Franco, not that he matters, I just wanted to say that he is the protagonist of an RPG game that's a prequel to Dead Space 2, which is kinda funny, he just dies at the start. Anyway, his sister is called Dinah, who wants to reunite with us to get the cure for our sickness, as we are clearly not well in the head, let's say. At the same time, we also get contacted by a different patient called Nolan Stross, a psychopath that killed his wife and kid, claiming that we can destroy the marker, as there is another one on this moon created by one Hans Tiedemann, the guy that was basically interrogating us while in the psych ward. So for the start of the game, we are following Dana, which from the very first moment, you, me and everybody else who played this game knows that things aren't gonna go well. It wouldn't surprise us if the second female character that helps us actually betrays us. So we get to her position, She's atop the Church of Unitology, so we all know where this is going. As we get to her, 2 guards seize us up, and surprise surprise, she works for the church, and her objective is to distract us as our mind is the purest one. Anyway, a gunship kills all 3. Very anticlimactic, I know. Turns out it has been 3 years since the attack on the Ishimura, but we have no recollection of those 3 years. But according to Strauss, we built something, and Tiedemann made us do it. And to do that, he taught us 4 steps. And Strauss is trying to remember all 4. By the way, throughout the game, the hallucinations about Nicole don't get better. In fact, they get worse. After escaping the gunship, Strauss contacts us again, and we decide to cooperate as his objective is to destroy the marker. So he sends us the location of the marker, which is in the government sector, which is under lockdown. As we are getting there, we meet this other woman called Ellie. This one seems more trustworthy, but I'm still not sure. She decides to join, as surviving alone would be kinda stupid. As we get closer and closer to the government sector, Tiedemann throws more and more shit at us to basically stop us. One of these things is basically stopping our tram from going anywhere by blasting the rails. So we get the idea to use the Ishimura, who is stationed there, as the events that unfolded inside were covered by the government. So we get inside the Ishimura and Nicole's visions get way worse. It's nostalgia time. We go back to the Ishimura and do a bunch of stuff to get the tram to the other side. But Strauss' dementia gets the better of him and attacks Ellie, so she loses an eye, and we are forced to kill Strauss in self-defense. At the same time, Nicole's visions get even worse, and she attacks us, so we admit that she is basically the last piece of hope Isaac has, as letting her go would leave us with nothing. This is when we learn about step 4, acceptance, and she stops being so creepy. So the 4 steps are: 1. Get into the machine. 2. The nails stop you from moving. 3. A needle in your eye. And 4. Acceptance. We finally get to the government section after using a giant drilling machine and telling Ellie that Strauss is dead. Anyway, this is when Isaac sends Ellie away with the ship instead of getting inside, as he still plans to destroy the marker. You know, the classic hero's sacrifice. To overwhelm Tiedemann's forces that are stopping us from getting to the marker, we open the doors to it, which makes a bunch of necromorphs go towards the marker, beginning a convergence, as the game calls it, an event foretold by the Unitologists. We get closer and closer to it, and we finally see it. It is enormous, and we, alongside a bunch of other patients, built it by using this machine. And this is when we get one of the most overwhelming scenes in the game. I don't even think I can show it, just look it up if you want. Just type something like Dead Space 2 needle scene on YouTube, it's really gross, so beware. We fight our final big necromorph. This immortal guy is the same as the one in Dead Space 1, the design is just different. Also, this one regenerates faster, it's just annoying. Once on the marker, we find Tiedemann, who looks like Two-Face at this point and shoots at us with a crossbow. Anyway, we kill him, and just as we accept Nicole's final help, she says this in the most monotone way. She says it like deadpan.
Thank you, Isaac. Now, time to die.
What?
Final boss time. This one is way worse than the previous one, or at least I think it is. You just have to shoot a bunch of small enemies and then weaken Nicole's vision and shoot the main body. And that's it. Isaac is now officially free from the marker's influence and it is destroyed. Just as we are about to accept our fate, Ellie comes back, who could have seen this coming, and rescues us. And we get this scene, which I'm just gonna let it play out. Yeah, it got bugged in my game. It was very funny when it was obviously meant as a throwback to the ending of the first game where Nicole scares us. This time obviously Ellie is there. In a post-credit scene that I didn't get for some reason, we hear 2 men talking, one of them called the Overseer, being told that marker site 12 was destroyed, and he says that the other sites should go there to pick up the pieces. So yeah, that's Dead Space 2. I'm gonna be honest, it's better than the first one in my opinion. Let's talk about what changed. So the game has some minor changes here and there. Instead of having just one suit that you upgrade, you have a bunch of them that do different things and look different. Some of them look really sick, and that's like the biggest thing you can think of beside Isaac himself. So in Dead Space 1, Isaac wasn't a character, he was just a self-insert. He didn't even speak. In this game, he's an actual protagonist, and a really good one at that, like really good. It surprised me how great of a protagonist he is. He is brave, he says the right thing when the time is right. A lot of people don't like this change, as for example, the scares in Dead Space 2 don't hit as hard if the protagonist just shrugs it off as nothing. I am of the opposite opinion, never really liked silent protagonists. I would much rather the scares be played off as nothing than have a protagonist that doesn't even have a personality. But that's just a me thing.
If I can line the tracks up just for a few seconds, you should be able to get the transport across. Stay ready, and take care of straws.
Isaac, no! This is a really bad idea.
I'll stick around. I'm full of bad ideas.
Also, this game has comedy. Granted, it's not in-your-face comedy most of the time, like this one for example.
Well, good. They're swarming in through a hole in the medical deck. At least you won't have to go through there.
Unexpected obstruction ahead. Shutting down. Welcome to the medical deck.
Crap.
And that's about it. Everything else is pretty much exactly the same. I only tried the same two weapons as I did before. I didn't really feel the need to change them too much. The HUD looks just as good as it did before. There was really no need to change it. It was already perfect, and that's all I can think of. Oh yeah, the game has multiplayer, not that I could try it because the servers are dead. And if they aren't, and some people still play it, EA app literally wouldn't allow me to connect to the servers. So funnily enough, that scene of the eye surgery was quite controversial, is not the word, but man, I wish I was recording myself because I genuinely closed my eyes for it because I just couldn't watch it. It was very nerve-wracking. I can't handle anything that has to do with eyes. Anyway, this game sold 2 million copies in its first week. To the surprise of nobody, the game is fucking fantastic. Even then, the game was considered a commercial failure, because even though it sold 4 million copies by the end of it, the pressure and the amount of money put into it wasn't worth it, but it was worth it enough to release a sequel. Oh yeah, this game has a DLC, I forgot to talk about that. I don't have footage because for some reason I don't have it, and I wasn't going to go and buy it, not a fan of giving EA money. It follows Gabe Weller and Lexine Weller. They were the protagonists of another game called Dead Space Extraction, which is also a prequel to Dead Space somehow. Anyway, the DLC is called Dead Space Severed. It basically happens at the same time as Dead Space 2. There's nothing really that important that I could find happening in that DLC. If anything, Gabe dies and Lexine just goes missing, and that's about it. She is never mentioned again. If there is one thing I want though from EA, it's a collector of this game. It had a fucking plasma cutter in the collectors. I need it. You know, at this point, I just give up. All three games had this fucking problem with VSync. All three of them. When I spoke about shitty ports in my Crisis video, this is exactly what I meant. Like, oh my god, how can you not learn after 2 games to do a single thing right? Anyway, this game is okay. It's the worst one of the 3 in my opinion. The story has a lot of things that are just infuriating, and some parts of the game design are just bad. So let's just begin. Before we even see Isaac, we control this guy called Tim, and a Professor El Serrano tells him to go get a Nexus, which he gets. But then this guy, General Mahat, just kills him and destroys the Nexus, killing himself. This is our MacGuffin for this game. After the ending of Dead Space 2, Ellie and Isaac form a relationship, but Ellie leaves Isaac because he wasn't doing anything about the aliens and all of that. This relationship is probably the worst aspect in this game, and you will see why. So anyway, as the game begins, riots are running rampant on the street as the church is basically spreading the necromorph disease. As Isaac reminisces of his past relationship with Ellie, we get basically attacked by these two guys and say that Ellie has disappeared and they want our help fighting against the church. As we run away from the fanatics, hey, we can crouch now. Robert Norton, the captain of the last force of EarthGov on the moon, is basically telling us that Ellie was following a lead to stop the necromorphs. As we go to the ship where Ellie's last location is, we get acquainted with our new allies. This is Carter, he had a wife and a kid that died, not that that matters, and these two are Rosen and Locke. Not that that matters. We go to this gigantic ship and the debris surrounding it. We get to Ellie and discover that she and Norton formed a relationship not long after leaving Isaac. All these two are also here, Santos and Buckle. Once all are reunited, we go to the captain's quarters in the ship and discover that there is an object, a Nexus, that can help turn off the necromorphs. Remember this, turn it off. So because this ship is here, it means that they followed a signal to this planet, which leads Ellie to conclude that this is the necromorph homeworld. Also, Isaac is kinda pissed at Ellie for finding another man so soon, We'll talk about this relationship later. We descend to the frozen planet, but the ship gets split in half and we get separated. This scene will always be funny to me, like the two I mentioned before, Rosen and Locke, die while descending to the planet, and not a single soul cares. No reaction, whether it's now or later. Like as Rosen dies, I believe it's Rosen, Ellie just pushes her aside to control the ship's guns. That's so funny. She doesn't give a fuck. As we follow a trail of flares left by Ellie, we find Buckle, which just reminded me of something. So this game has side missions, like actual side missions. For example, while in the big ship above the planet, you have 4 locations to go to, and in one of them, you have a side mission given to you by Buckle, and you get other missions by finding them. And they are more and more as the game progresses. Usually they just give materials for crafting, because the one big change that they added to this game is a bench. And in this bench, you can create custom weapons. And for that, you need materials. Yeah, that's the big change, and this leads to some extremely overpowered weapons. We'll see them later. Anyway, Buckle dies, and we must get a new suit to fight the cold. Speaking of suits, do you like my N7 suit? Yeah, this game has this cool reference to Mass Effect. We get the suit after fighting through the most annoying enemies in the game. Those guys run fast, are very weak, but can dodge, and if a bunch of them gang up on you, you will suffer for a bit. We go up the mountain and reunite with Ellie and the others, but not before getting attacked by this spider. This spider is one of the bosses of the game, and it's probably the worst one. It's almost untouchable. It's also extremely annoying to kill, not that it matters because it runs away before we can kill it. So inside this facility, Danica and his men find us, we get separated. We also fight a drill, like generally a drill as a boss fight. Anyway, we reunite in this open hall, where we find this gigantic necromorph known as the Nexus, and Santos, our lady with the brain, wants to use it to track the signal to the machine to turn off the necromorphs. So we craft a gun needed to track down that machine, and we go inside the Nexus, like in his stomach. Here we have to shoot 3 yellow blobs to extract information. We also find these guys here, which are the same as the others, just more tanky. I hate them. As we get out because we have enough information, Norton traps us inside this cage we used to descend into the Nexus, as he desperately wants to leave. Just before going inside the Nexus, we talk with him asking something like who is that, but he just says not to worry about it. Now clearly this is foreshadowing, but I don't know if my game bugged or if I'm just blind, but I didn't see anything for Isaac to ask. We get out of the cage, and lo and behold, Norton betrayed us to Danik as he wants a ship to leave. Wait, I just realized something. I have mentioned this guy like 3 times now, and you probably don't know who it is. This is Danik. He is the leader of an organization called the Circle, which is like the more extremist part of the Church of Unitology. He is not a good villain, I'm sorry. I even forgot to mention him while on the moon, because in the moon he almost kills Isaac, because as with Dead Space 2, he intends to capture us and use our brain. Anyway, we kill Danik's men, and then the Nexus just says hello, and it's boss fight time. This is probably the worst boss in the game, not because the boss is bad, but because the weapons I had were the worst ones possible. And here is when I discovered a couple of things. So the way this game works is that it saves automatically, unlike the previous games where you save manually by going to a save station, but what's saved is your inventory and your upgrades, not your progress. So I couldn't just load back to change weapons, I had to restart the chapter. Thankfully it was like 5 minutes before the boss fight, but still. Anyway, I went to look for a 100% save file. I didn't really care about progress that much as this is not my first playthrough, and I just wanted to craft the most busted weapon in the game and speedrun this game. But it turns out that the newest version of the game doesn't allow people to share files, because it puts your ID in them. So if that other file's ID doesn't share an ID with your other one, it won't load. Fantastic game, EA, I love it. Anyway, I restarted the chapter and crafted this thing. This thing is busted beyond belief. I do not know who made this, and it's not the best version of it. Both of the barrels should be the top version, but B5. Thing is, that's a DLC only component, so obviously I wasn't about to give EA money just for a gun. Anyway, we defeat the boss, get eaten by it, we then get another fight in his gastric juices, yuck, and then get spit out. This is when Norton just goes ballistic, saying that it was our fault and that we should leave, and then he threatened us, so we shoot him in the head.
Captain, stand down, Sergeant. This is all your fucking fault. She doesn't love you.
We go back to Ellie, tell her the truth, and that's that. Also, Santos has this reaction.
Now there are only 4 of us left.
What are you, 5? We now must go to the top of the mountain to find our Rosetta. We go to the lab, Santos dies midway, killed technically by the spider, but Carter was the one that just drops the elevator with her inside. Also, we kill the spider, finally, and we get to the lab where Rosetta is split into pieces, which by the way is what you see in the main menu screen with every piece being a menu, so we must assemble her back. After 4 sections with multiple minigames, we build Rosetta, an alien that the scientists used to build the Nexus with the brain of said alien. We get a revelation. This isn't the home world, this is just another world that the necromorph disease spread to. The extraterrestrials of this planet found a marker and became corrupted by it, and it created this fake moon on the sky with the bodies of the beings that transformed and the ones that didn't. That is what a convergence is. These moons transmit a signal to other moons so that the people there experiment on these markers, even though they have no life and they spread. But the people of this planet managed to stop the convergence by freezing the planet with a machine, which is the one we need. But oh no, Danik is there. So we do some movie magic and he escapes. So we run to him, but Ellie must be left behind because there is no time. So we think her dead. She is not, obviously, it's that kind of game. We pursue Danik and descend into the machine, where we recover the Nexus just before falling. The machine turns out to be a gigantic city. In here we learn a bit of the alien language. No, I'm not joking, look at these puzzles, and we get to the center of it after activating it. Throughout this section we can find logs from Dr. Serrano telling us everything that went down and how he was waiting for Tim to get back with the Nexus when he got injured and died. Here is his body. But just as we're about to get to the middle, Ellie communicates with us, as she managed to escape. Not sure how, like she says she escaped through the piping system I believe, but like, you know what? Sure, whatever. And Danik has her captured. Danik waits for us in the middle, and while Isaac knows what is at stake, Carver thinks that we can still do good after doing an exchange. So he gives Danik the Nexus and he gives us Ellie. And the convergence begins. Oh, Danik dies by the way. Ellie then is told to leave, while Carver and us deal with this. How do you deal with a monster the size of a moon? Great question. You throw spikes at its size. It's boss fight time. This boss fight is okay, like it's not amazing, but it's fine. Your objective is to stall the enemies until the boss fight shows you one of its size, and you shoot at it with one of the thousands of markers that were on the planet. Anyway, we deal with the convergence, dying in the process, and Ellie mourns our loss, but realizes that not only our signal is gone, but also the marker, so she sets course to Earth, and then we get the credits. And the game ends. No, it doesn't. I wish it did though. We get a post-credit scene where Isaac calls for Ellie, but she doesn't answer. You might be thinking, oh, this is clear sequel bait, or something like the Mass Effect 3 ending. And while EA loves their shitty ambiguous endings, this is not one of them, at least not in the best game, as Dead Space 3 has a story DLC called Awakening. It starts by Isaac awakening after everything. That is right people, Corver and Isaac managed somehow to survive a moon crashing into a planet. We are officially in the Moonfall timeline. Anyway, we must escape the planet via a ship of the Church, but while we try and get one, turns out the necromorphs are not dead. In fact, they are still alive, and we still have visions. One of those visions is the fact that there are more moons. That wasn't the only one. So we must go to Earth to save it. But the Church ship can only stay in the system, so we must find another way. So we go back to the ship at the beginning, and we get a core to get it to Earth, but then the visions start fucking with Isaac's mind, telling him that if they go back they will follow him to Earth as they don't know where it is, which you know is bullshit because a black marker was found on Earth 300 years prior. Carver and Isaac have a discussion about how to handle the core. Isaac wants to destroy it as he doesn't want the aliens to follow him, but Carver wants to use it because they are clearly fucking with Isaac's mind. After another fight in Limbo, turns out the aliens knew all along where there was, so Isaac changes opinions again, and we go to Earth, and we get this scene. And that's the end. That is now the second EA trilogy I've played that ends in a cliffhanger. But unlike Mass Effect, which did get the Reapers defeated, in here the plot hasn't even finished. And sadly, it probably never will. So, let's talk about the problems. The first thing is that the relationship between Ellie and Isaac. The game hammers it down as something super important, but there is a problem. We didn't see it developed. Heck, we didn't even see it start or finish. So why should we care? I mean, I like Ellie, but Isaac and her were just friends at the end of Dead Space 2. And a lot of the things that happen in the game is because Norton is clearly jealous of Isaac and vice versa. Like, genuinely, every time they spoke about this relationship, I could not care less. Another bad thing this game has is the characters. For some reason, the game kills a lot of characters, but none of them were likable enough for us to care. Like, literally none of them, except Ellie and Carter. And that's it. The villain is horrendous. I generally couldn't care what Admiral Han Gerrel was doing half the time. Another problem is the story. While most of it is okay, there are some parts and implications that are just a clusterfuck. For example, did you know the original black marker found on Earth wiped out the dinosaurs? Yes, I am serious, and that was to create a path for mammals to take over so that the Brethren Moon, as the gigantic moons are called, could eat every species in the galaxy and converge them, ascend them into this ultimate life form that is a Brethren Moon through the convergence event. That is basically their purpose. These moons pretty much revere death. They see it as something special, a way to ascend into something greater. So they manipulate every possible being in the entire universe and mind control them pretty much so that the convergence begins and they can create another Brethren Moon. You see where this is going, right? This is pretty much a one-for-one of the plot of Mass Effect, except in this case the Necromoons don't have a reason like beings create machines and those machines turn on them, so we must kill every living being so that they don't kill themselves by creating new machines, you know, the nonsense of the Mass Effect 3 story. In this case, they just kill for the love of the game. Funnily enough, the Brethren Moon weren't mentioned until Dead Space 3, but Dead Space Remake did add them as a dialogue option by Brant Harris, telling Mercer about it. The remake also added lore about the origin of the Church of Unitology, like for example, Altman, the creator of the church, wasn't a Unitologist. His death was used as a martyr to create the church. The guy just spread the truth about the markers because he feared what the government would do with them, and he was right. Now the problem with the story is a combination of the past relationship with Ellie, the underwhelming villain, but all in all it wouldn't be too bad if Awaken didn't happen. If everything had just ended at the end of Dead Space 3 and we didn't hear Isaac call for Ellie, everything would be fine. But no. Instead, we had to copy Yog-Sothoth, or however the fuck you pronounce that, and make it so that the game ends on a cliffhanger that we will never get to see the end to. And the biggest one, and its biggest criticism, the overall focus of the game. This game suffers from the same problem that Metro Exodus did for a lot of people. Granted, Metro Exodus is a much better game overall, but the problems are the exact same. And it's the fact that the game is much more action focused than horror focused. Many more enemies come at you at the same time. You have many more options to choose for weapons, heck you can even create original ones. You have side missions and exploration, and while the latter is fine, it being such a big part of the game is not really the most brilliant idea. The game was also filled with microtransactions, and the DLC, being a DLC rather than an extension of the game just after the credits hit, hits you like a truck. Why do I have to pay to see the ending of the game? What is this? Assassin's Creed? Not only that, while for example Assassin's Creed Odyssey took part of its story and its ending for a DLC, at least the DLC was long enough and had content in it. Whether the quality of said content was good or not is a different point, but it took me like 10 hours to beat that DLC. The Dead Space 3 DLC lasted me like 45 minutes, maybe even less. Dead Space 4 was originally planned to be created, but it ended up being cancelled, obviously as Visceral Games ceased to exist in 2015, after developing Battlefield Hardline. Yeah, not only that, but 10 years later we got Dead Space Remake, a remake of the original Dead Space, more suited for modern audiences instead of the awaited Dead Space 4. So you would think, well maybe if Dead Space Remake sold well, they could end up making Dead Space 4. A couple of weeks ago, EA said that Dead Space was frozen. Straight up just frozen. They didn't plan to release another game, whether it be a remake or a new entry. So yeah, we will never know what happened to Earth at the end of Dead Space 3 Awakened. In fact, most people have accepted that everyone just dies. We're better off that way. Dead Space 3 released ironically the same month that Crysis 3 did, and both were failures. They didn't meet expectations, and ironically, again, they were both the last game of the franchise before being thrown to the nostalgia bin, never to be seen again until a remaster or remake got released. It's kind of sad really, that's now 2 trilogies in a row that will never fully conclude, ever, and we all know that if they ever did, it would be pretty underwhelming. Anyway, all in all, I can't say that Dead Space 3 is a bad game. EA was just being EA with it, and it sucked. I will still say it's the worst of the three, but it's still a pretty solid game. The addition of the puzzles in this game was kind of welcome. There are many more than in the previous two games, and there are a decent variety of them. Also, the Easter egg with the letters at the beginning of each chapter came back. It now says, "Brother Moons are awake." Funnily enough, the Awaken DLC was what they had planned originally with Dead Space 3. They tried to make Isaac an unreliable narrator, and the game would take his dementia and multiply it by 20, making it so that by the end he leads the Brother Moons to Earth as he is a herald of the marker, and in Dead Space 4 he would fight against his dementia and fight the Brother Moons. But obviously that never happened. Honestly, I really like this trilogy. Even with all the flaws of Dead Space 3, cosmic horror is something I really enjoy, so if Dead Space 4 ever gets announced, I will be there, with my expectations set to 0, expecting the game to suck. What? Did you expect me to say I would be hyped for the game? Hell no. Anyway, I would put this trilogy at the same level as the Bioshock one. I like it a lot more than the Crysis one. I would give it like an 8.5 maybe as a whole. I don't know, something like that. It's hard to grade games if you want to compare them. Anyway, that's gonna be it for today. I will try to release this video before the year ends. I should be able to, so yeah, Merry Christmas and Happy New Year, as we probably won't see each other until next year. See you in the next video.